Alright, it's Henry again, and this is my video for the completed 1 to 144 scale high-grade Guntank, Gundam the Origin version. And as you can see, I did a custom color scheme on this kit. The original kit was pretty much entirely in different shades of gray, with the exception of the clear green part for the visor eye. And I've done quite a bit of weathering to this as well. So I didn't do any modifications to it at all, just did a straight out-of-the-box paint job. As far as seam lines go, they really weren't bad at all. There was a seam line on each of the shoulder joints, which is partially covered up by this armor plate here, and the actual joint part there. So it was really just there and there was a little seam. So that was super easy to fix. Let's see, there was another one somewhere. Oh yeah. Right in this collar area, this circular collar that goes around the head, on the side of it there was a pretty nasty seam line. I actually had to use some putty to fill that one in addition to cement. But the good thing about that one is that with these giant cannons on the shoulders, you really can barely see it at all. So even if you do fill it in, it's not even really going to be very visible. And I think that was pretty much it. All the other seam lines on the kit are obscured by panel lines. I was like, there's a seam right there, but they sort of turned it into a panel line on the back of the ammo drum. Likewise, there's a seam going down the main body of the cannons here, but they've hidden all those on panel lines, so there's not really a need to cement and try to hide and fix the seam line. So Bandai did a pretty darn good job as far as seams go on this kit. As far as my paint process goes, I used a method for doing the chipping that is a little bit new to me. This is the second time I've used it. It's called Hairspray Chipping. If you want to learn more about it, you can watch my work in progress video. Basically, I sprayed a kind of a brownish gray base coat for the underlying metal color, and then sprayed an acrylic paint job on top of it with hairspray in between the two paint layers, and then used a little bit of water and a toothpick to actually do the chipping in the paint job along all the edges and anywhere there might be scratches or battle damage or things like that. So it's kind of like real life chipping the way it happens in out in the real world, only in the real world it obviously doesn't happen with a toothpick. But the effect is really, really nice. I'm super happy with it, and I will definitely be using that technique again in the future. I did a camouflage color scheme, desert camouflage as you can see. Just 3 tones, and I used liquid masking solution between each of the 3 different colors of paint to make the camouflage patterns, and then once all the paint was applied, I simply removed the masking fluid and the camouflage color scheme was revealed. Again, you can see that in my work in progress video if you want a closer look at it. And then after I did the camouflage and the chipping, I went over the entire kit with a brown wash just to give it a nice dirty grungy look. Then I did a little bit of dry brushing, not too much, mainly just the gray parts, because I did end up dry brushing on the camouflage, but it doesn't show up a whole lot, but it's just enough to give it a little bit of definition along those raised edges. Then I went in with some weathering pigments and did some dust effects and dirt on the treads and like some soot where the shell casings are ejected from the hand machine gun things. Did a little bit of soot on these vents back here on the cannons, and let's see, like these giant vents over here on the rear of the tank down here as well. And then I did something I've never done before, is try to make mud effects. I looked up a tutorial where you can mix pigment paint and a thickening agent. In my case, I used cornstarch, and it turns into a really nice thick mud paint, and it goes on a lot thicker. And unlike paint, which will be pretty much flat when it dries, this mud mixture actually had like a thickness to it and actually looked like mud once it dried. So I did that basically just on the treads of the tracks here, and really went to town weathering these tracks because that's where all the dirt and dust is going to be kicked up. So I wanted those to look as dirty as possible. I also did some mud effects down on the bottom here where all that's going to get scraped up from when it's driving over rocks and terrain and all kind of different stuff. Didn't go very heavy on the decals, pretty much bare minimum. I've got a gray 34 here, which is not very visible after all the weathering, but it's there. See a little 34 in the chest. Got a black and yellow checker pattern stripe going around each wrist. Damaged those up with a hobby knife before doing all the weathering on top of them. A simple little yellow stripe on each cannon barrel. And I believe that was it. Nope. I also had one little caution marking on each cannon because I knew that this kit was going to be busy enough with all of the weathering and the camouflage. I didn't want to add another level of busyness by having way too many decals. So, let's see, what else? Is that it? One last little effect I do want to mention is the gun barrels here. I looked up, it's always nice to have a reference because I notice a lot of people do these like color change effects on metal parts, namely on thrusters. That's where you mostly see it done on Gunpla, but Guntank doesn't really have any thrusters except for these turbine thingies down here, which I'm not even sure how functional those even are. But I thought it would look cool on the gun barrels, and it's important, I think, to try to do these color change effects realistically. So I went online and got on Google and looked up what color steel actually changes when it heats up, because it changes, it's not like in rainbow order, it changes a specific shade of color depending on what temperature it's heated up to. And you've got like the base temperature, and then it'll go to light brown, and then purple, and then blue, and then back to silver, and then when it gets even hotter, that's when it starts heating up to red, to orange, to yellow, and it starts glowing. So I wanted to use a realistic color change, so I got the silver, light brown, brown, purple, blue, and then back to silver, where it's going to be the hottest at the very end of the barrel. And I think it turned out really nice. And I just freehanded that with the airbrush. I didn't want to use masking because that would make the lines way too sharp and they wouldn't have a nice gradation to them. So that about does it for my little wrap-up video for my 1:144 scale Origin Guntank. And I'm going to close with a short little slideshow. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.